Are gun owners whose guns are stolen responsible for the crimes committed with their guns if they didn't secure the firearms properly? Let's talk about it. And Matthew is from Nebraska, and he asks us, we have been having a wave of firearm robberies here in the Lincoln, Nebraska area, and there's been much debate about who should bear the responsibility and the blame. Is it the gun owner who allowed or enabled the theft, or is it the criminal who committed the crime?
And that, that's one of those things where, yes, if you have the means, you should own some sort of, whether it is a safe or some way to lock up your firearms. That is certainly a preferable thing to do, both to safeguard your property and to safeguard the lives of yourself and your family, lest someone, take control of that firearm and use it in an irresponsible way.
Yeah.
At the same time, I would not be for advocating the prosecution of a otherwise responsible gun owner because somebody broke into the residence and stole one of their firearms.
Right.
There are people who, because of their financial means, choose to purchase the firearm without buying a safe because they cannot afford both. And to deny them their Second Amendment rights because they cannot afford a safe, to me, that's just not acceptable. Now, if you were to say, for example, that you have a family where you have young children, and the adults in the home own firearms and do nothing to safeguard their children from gaining unauthorized access to those firearms, and then a child takes one of those firearms and harms or kills themselves or their parent and so forth. That's one of those cases where I believe that the parents, the adults, bear some culpability because you have an obligation to safeguard your child from that. For myself, I've got 3 young children. I would not own firearms were it not for the fact that I also have the means of securing them so that my children cannot access them. Yes, I teach my children about firearm safety, but children are children. Their minds don't work in the same way that an adult does, and they can do things without thinking that can have...
The concept of consequences don't...
Yes, permanent consequences, yes. Exactly.
I think the 2 words in this question that stand out to me are the words responsibility and blame.
Yes.
Right? So there's obviously the criminal is to blame for the crime, right?
Absolutely.
And so I agree with you that we shouldn't be like prosecuting the gun owner who allowed the gun to be stolen. We shouldn't. I don't believe in things like safe storage laws or laws that require a gun owner to report their gun stolen within a certain period of time, because what happens if their gun's stolen, they don't even know it, and they don't report it within a certain period of time, and then they get in trouble with the law. I don't like those kinds of things because it criminalizes someone who's actually a victim. What I do think is that as a gun owner, we have a huge responsibility to store our guns safely. And like you said, especially if we have kids. And so I always bristle and get really worked up when people around here start talking about lamenting the fact that their cars were broken into and they lost a gun. And I'm like, dude, what is wrong with you? A car is not a gun safe.
Right.
What is your problem?
Right. And you put 23 gun stickers on your car to demonstrate that you were a gun owner in the first place.
Right. So if if you're going to own a gun, and especially if you have kids, you need to find a way to store it responsibly, especially if you have kids, or if you have other people who are in and out of your home. A nightstand is not a gun safe. Your car is not a gun safe. If you leave your car or your gun in the car overnight and it's broken into, you're partly responsible for making that possible. And so I would not be opposed to the idea that a gun owner in that case, especially if the gun was used in a violent crime, like you were talking about, where a child maybe gets a hold of the gun, takes it and shoots up a school. If it turns out that, unlike, say, Newtown, where the kid killed his parent, where you were negligent and just left the gun out and the kid took it and committed a crime, you made it possible for them to get easy access to it. The victims of that crime should be able to sue you. I think you should bear some culpability for that crime, not on a criminal level, but a civil level. Just the same way that you wouldn't leave a vicious guard dog free to roam around in your front yard without a fence.
Right. Yeah, I think a good way to look at this is that if you had a bachelor who lived alone, who owned firearms, who didn't see the need of having a safe because, hey, he lives alone, and somebody breaks into his house and steals his firearm, I don't believe that he should bear any legal culpability if that firearm is then used in an act of violence.
Right.
If, on the other hand, you are that same bachelor and you tell your junky neighbors all the time that, yeah, I own guns, and then when you're gone, one of them breaks in and takes your gun, well, that makes you an idiot, and you should still be culpable in some way because of that.
Right. Right.
And that's where we get into the realm of negligence. And negligence, is something that covers a very broad spectrum when it comes to legality. And so, a person can be negligent without having any intent of doing harm. And yes, in those cases, they do bear some legal culpability.
If you enjoyed this clip of Armed Lutheran Radio, be sure to subscribe to this channel. Also, check out our podcast, Armed Lutheran Radio, if you enjoy these kinds of discussions about the moral and ethical issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. If you would like to support our mission and hear more, keep us doing what we do, then be sure to check out the Reformation Gun Club. We are listener-supported, and that means that we don't have advertising. We don't have any sponsors. We rely on our listeners to keep us going. So you can check out all of that and get access to lots of exclusive content for as little as $1 a month. Look for a link in the show notes for our website and for the Reformation Gun Club as well, plus any other helpful links related to today's topic. Thank you all for watching. Christ's blessings to you, and I'll talk to you next time.